Hello and welcome to False Allegation Radio. Today on the podcast, we've got a very special guest with us, telling his story about a false allegation and how it's affected him. Good morning, Colin.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm okay. I've been attacked by a seagull, but I'm okay now.
Attacked by seagulls and rogue ambulances by the sounds of it. So, obviously I will drop your links to your social media below. You've done plays about false allegations and you've wrote books about false allegations. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, wow, the ultimate question. I've come from a background in teaching and theatre. I went to Warwick Uni 20 years ago.
That makes you feel old, doesn't it?
I'm feeling old now. And then I trained to be a drama teacher, and I stuck around in the West Midlands. That's pretty much how I sort of got my grounding really in being out in the real world.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I've taught for quite a few years until about 2010. Then I sort of started leaving teaching, dabbled around with some primary teaching and then left teaching to focus on my writing. And as you say, in that journey I've written a play specifically on false allegations. I've been on national committees and all that kind of thing, so I've been very involved in these issues and safeguarding and things like that for a long time.
Yeah. So you say you've wrote a play with regards to false allegations. Well, what's that play called?
The play is called No Smoke. Originally, I put it on stage in 2014, and the good news is, and actually, you're an exclusive for this.
I like exclusives.
It is going to be on stage later this year in the north of England.
Ooh.
I can't give away details yet, but, watch this space.
Perhaps you could come back on when you can give details and you could let the listeners know where they can go and watch this play, how they can get tickets and how they can get involved.
Yeah, I'll probably have to come back with that, but it'll be it's in the Bradford area, and almost definitely in September.
Okay.
But when I got all the info, then absolutely, yeah.
I actually think what would be quite good as well would be a show sort of discussing the play specifically, because obviously you and I have known each other for some time, so I've got a good idea and a good grounding about what the play is. But for other people out there to see sort of the wider aspects of false allegations, I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah, it'd be great. People can get hold of the play. I published it, so if people can't see it, they can always read it and we can do a Q&A on it. It sounds like a good idea.
It does. And I don't know how these things work, to be fair. So I don't know if, say, False Allegation Radio would be permitted to go and do a filming session, do a taping session of a performance of it. But certainly if that's an option, maybe that's something we could look at as well.
Oh, certainly. I mean, I'm a self-published writer, so I own all the rights to the play. So and the company that are doing it would be up for anything like that.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
yeah, we'll all get together and
Have a merry
plan.
knees up in Bradford.
Mm.
So obviously you've touched on the fact that you used to be a teacher, and obviously you've got out of the teaching profession. Is that because of the false allegation that was made against yourself?
You know what? That's a really, really interesting question because my answer has changed over the years. Essentially, no.
Oh.
I left teaching altogether because of professional differences. I love teaching kids, but the career, I just got sick of it.
Yeah.
But I would say that looking back in hindsight, it changed me.
Yes.
The false allegation really did sow the seeds to the demise of my, I don't know, enthusiasm or tolerance. Not to the children, but to the profession as a whole.
Yeah.
So, having been out of teaching for long enough now to look back objectively, I can see how it began that long route out of teaching.
I think you make a really good point. You say that the false allegation that you suffered has changed you as a person. And do you know what? I think anybody and everybody who suffered a false allegation would say exactly the same thing. Whether you're, a little bit more guarded in a one-on-one situation, or even whether you're in a room full of people. I mean, I used to, in one of the old jobs I did before my false allegation, I was a similar sort of thing, whereby I was a trainer for adults, like on the job training. And I would have my own training room and I wouldn't be monitored by anybody else. And I'm quite, or I was quite a bubbly, bouncy person almost. And, potentially I might be a bit of a jack of the lad at the times and say things that, other people wouldn't necessarily get away with. Would I do that now? I wouldn't even step foot in my old training room now because of the fact that it was a room that was sort of out of the way. It was downstairs. It was dark. It was dingy, and anybody could have said anything. And it was something I never thought about at the time. I never give a second care in the world to. Whereas now, I wouldn't even step foot in that room.
That's interesting you say that, because even before I went into teaching, I did a lot of work with young people and in child protection, and I was very highly trained in child protection.
Yeah.
Far, far better than most teachers. I was so much more aware about how to protect myself, about how to ensure that the children were safe, that I was safe, and even still, I was gone. And that shocks people a lot, because they think, my God, even someone with that much knowledge, who took more precautions than most naive teachers do. Even he was caught in this terrible web. When I say to people, watch your back, I really, really mean it.
Yeah. I mean, since obviously starting this little venture, I've been followed by people who are fans of, for instance, Michael Jackson, Rolf Harris, Cliff Richard. Now, regardless of whether or not we believe the allegations against them, the point being, as you've just said, it doesn't matter who you are or how well prepared you are, you will get got if somebody has it in for you. There's no two ways about that. You and I, in different ways, are both extremely intelligent people, and even with the intelligence, with the training, with the knowledge, if somebody wants to drop that nuclear bomb, and I said this the other day, a false allegation is a nuclear bomb, because it doesn't matter who you are or what you do or how clever you are, you cannot defend against it. And the other point why I call it a nuclear bomb is it affects anybody and everybody within the blast radius. So it affects me, it affects my wife, my children. Obviously it affected yourself, your family, your friends, your colleagues, everybody in that blast zone, that blast radius, that blast area is affected by it. And again, I don't think people understand that. And when I call it a nuclear bomb, a nuclear explosion, people think, oh God, he's off again. He's being, over dramatic. But I really don't think it is over dramatic at all.
It's a very good analogy, because it's a nuclear bomb, because even after the burn, there's still the fallout.
Yes. Yep.
Decades on, we're still looking at the effects of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. That is what these things do.
Yeah.
And you will still meet people who will look at you twice.
Yes.
And wonder, even though, it was the most spurious of ridiculous situations. So, yeah, it is, when you're talking about bombs, it's nuclear, it's not a grenade, it's bigger.
It's bigger and it lasts longer and affects more people. So, I mean, you make a good point there, actually. You say that even when it's proven to be nothing but a lie, nothing but a false allegation, nothing but a spurious, nasty, vile, whatever, people do still look at you twice. And that comes back to the fact that, and I was guilty of this, I'll hold my hands up and say this, people will always think, well, there's no smoke without fire. And that comes back to your play, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's where the title came from.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, I'm a different person. Some for the good, some for the bad. Decades on, I'm still affected, as I know that you are. It really does baffle me that in this day and age, you and I are sat here discussing this problem, and the fact that it's allowed and enabled to happen. It really is just bizarre, in my opinion. So, before I go off on a tangent, because I can do that quite often, what is your story? Without giving, obviously, any identifying details away, explain to the listeners the story of your false allegation.
Okay, yeah. Well, as I think it is only fair to say to the listeners that the reason I am happy to use my real name is because I've already gone public.
Yes.
and I've already talked openly at conference and things like that. So please don't take it that the fact that I'm using my real name as an indicator that you should use yours. In fact, I'd recommend that unless it's important, don't use your real name.
Yeah.
You know, I'm happy to. You know, I'll quote my drama teaching tutor when I was at university. Trust me, I'm a drama teacher. Anyway, my story. Well, at the time of when it happened, I was a secondary drama teacher in Coventry, and I loved my job. I was a popular teacher, got on very well with the kids. It was a very, how do I put this nicely? The school served a highly deprived area.
Yeah.
So the kids were what most people outside the school would say all challenging.
Yes.
And straight away I'd say no. The kids weren't challenging. They were just lacking in what they had.
Yeah.
They were actually great kids. 99.9% of them. And I got on well with them. I also did a lot of work on the pastoral side. And I cared very much about that in my job. So it wasn't just about teaching my subject for me. It was about getting to know the kids. Anyway, for some unknown reason, after I'd worked at the school for a couple of years, the head teacher began to take a real dislike to me, and I became one of his victims. He was an awful workplace bully, and when I say one of his victims, he had about 7 or 8 teachers who he personally attacks and he went after, to the extent that none of us would meet one-on-one with him.
Wow.
We would demand that we had a union rep with us. He was that dangerous. So, I mean, why? I've got no idea. And anyway, he started to try and build up this narrative that in some way I had a preference for younger male pupils. Now, straight away, that rings alarm bells.
Yeah.
But what he did is he began to build a dossier of his own perception. He would call it evidence. He thought he was talking factually. He confused his perception for what is real. With hindsight now, I can see that he was really, well, quite a dangerous narcissist, to be honest.
Yeah.
Which is a theme I know is going to come up a lot.
Absolutely.
On Far Voice. Anyway, so I'm trying to avoid going off on tangents.
No, you're all good. You're all good.
So to give an example, he would make a particular note if I supported a male pupil.
Sorry. Is that not, or was that not your job to support pupils?
Well, yeah. But the weirdest thing is, so I would go. I'll give two examples. I went with another member of staff to an after-school event to support one of the kids. So not only did I go with another teacher, and I let my line managers know, and their parents knew, but he still recorded that as showing preference.
Wow.
Of course, the fact that I also did the same for female pupils, well, he didn't record that. So he had this weird narrative. Now you're probably thinking, no, what the hell are you telling us that for? Well, it's important to the context.
Yeah.
Anyway, the actual incident, this is the real bit. It was one day, it happened at lunchtime. I basically stopped a boy from going to beat the living daylights out of another boy.
Okay.
Didn't involve any physical intervention. I just stared at the potential victim and said, walk away now. And they did. But the accusing child just kept standing, ranting and raving and all of that. And that was witnessed, it was outside, it was witnessed by a number of pupils, and one of them I can remember who witnessed it. Anyway, this kid then marched off, and I had to follow him because, well, he looked like he was going to do something pretty bad.
Yeah. Safeguarding.
Yeah. And it got to a point where he then said to me, I'm going to go home and tell my dad you touched me.
Jesus Christ.
Now, at that point, I just walked away. And having had the training that I'd had, I knew what to do. So I walked away, got an incident form, filled it all in, went straight to my line manager via the photocopier.
Yep. Always keep evidence, always.
Exactly, yeah. Gave him that form, told him what had happened, and he said, brilliant, I'll deal with this. You don't worry about it, I'll sort it out. And from that point, I heard nothing more. So, not even any feedback on what happened. You know, I even went back to that line manager to say, well, you know, that was pretty serious. What are you doing about it?
Yeah, of course.
And you know, he was a nice bloke. I got on really well with him. And he said, don't worry, it's being dealt with. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. And then I think about by the end of that school week, it was in the morning at the end of the staff briefing, the head teacher came up to me and took me to one side. So bear in mind, this is a public place. He handed me a letter, which basically was a formal letter of disciplinary action that I've been accused of sexual assault.
And this was done in a
I
public
would
place.
be investigated. And this is like 20 to 9 in the morning. And it's like, here you are, you're going to be investigated. Off you go, get on with your work. and it's like, what? And it is, I laugh now, but it was absurd.
You see, sorry to jump in, but the safeguarding officer in me would say, hang on a second, if they're taking this allegation seriously and they're investigating it, why was you allowed to continue your day? Surely if they believe there was something in it, which obviously this guy clearly did because of the fact that he was keeping this dossier, how is it you was able to carry on?
Standard practice in that situation would be immediate suspension.
Exactly.
And that's not just to protect children, it is also to protect the staff member. So, I mean, I went to my union rep because that's what you do.
Yeah, of course.
He said, of course, right, we'll call in the big dogs of the union straight away, and credit to them, they were brilliant. But then the weirdest thing happened. I was told by the head teacher not to discuss the issue with anyone. I'll come back to that later because that's not actually true.
Okay.
Of what you should do. You must be careful, obviously, not to spread the name of the accuser, but to be banned from discussing it with anyone is not actually true.
No.
But I didn't know that. I was, crapping myself. It's about as bad language as I'll go.
I think, to be fair...
Anyway, the next thing that happened for me was absolutely nothing. So this happened February, actually around about this time in the year, and then I heard nothing more. No more talk, no discussion, no follow-up. I wasn't suspended. What I did do is I contacted Bernardo's, because I worked for Bernardo's at the time.
Yeah.
And I contacted my manager there to say, look, I think you really need to know that this is going on. And I found out from them, well, they already knew. And the reason they knew was because, without boring your listeners, when you get an allegation like that, the allegation will be taken to what is called a safeguarding committee.
Yeah.
And they have a meeting that involves school, social services, police, all this, that, and the other. and they decide on what action should be taken.
Yeah.
And the decision was that this would be handed to the police and pursued as a criminal matter. But they also decided that it was not necessary to suspend me from work.
Which immediately says,
It's
hang
weird.
on, yeah, that's very bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, and they said to Bernardo's, so to be fair, since we told the school that, they will say the same to you. You don't have to suspend him.
Crazy.
So it was actually an agreement between me and Bernardo's that it was wise to pause the voluntary work that I was doing, because that was one-on-one work with really challenging children. So it was wiser for me just to not stop, but take a step back.
So can I just intervene just 1 second and just ask
Yeah.
a question? So you say that you was working with Bernardo's and you was working with really challenging children. The caseload that you had from Bernardo's, I assume that wasn't something that you could pick and choose. So you couldn't say to Bernardo's, I only want to deal with male children or female children, for example.
No, I mean, I was what's called an independent visitor.
Okay.
So people can look that up. By the way, Bernardo's a great B&IV. It's fantastic. But what you do is you work one-on-one, and you are matched very specifically to a child. It's rare that a male volunteer would be matched with a female child. Just because that alleviates many potential problems.
Sure.
I personally understand it at a certain level, but on another level, I kind of think it's weird. But I couldn't pick and choose that, and nor could I increase or decrease the work that I was doing, because it was one-on-one.
Which then makes
So
a
all
mockery.
we decided was I would not do any more one-on-one visits where it was just me alone with the child until this matter had been resolved.
Sure.
And that was to, again, protect me as much as the child.
Yeah.
So, but the reason I mentioned it was because Bernardo's also have been told it's not necessary to suspend me. So that's a very weird situation.
Yeah.
But anyway, I didn't know really that until I spoke to Bernardo's, and I said to them in February of 2008, well, I'll update you when I know more. And then, as far as I knew, nothing was happening until April. During the Easter holidays, 4th of April, around about 10 or 11 in the morning, I get 2 detectives knocking on my door. Sorry,
It's
just
okay.
taking a drink.
No, you're okay.
and they were plainclothes, very calm. As soon as they introduced themselves, I knew exactly what it was about.
Of course, yeah.
And they came in, and I must give credit to them. They didn't make it all big and dramatic. They just confirmed who I was, asked if I knew why they were there, and I said yes, I'm pretty certain, and just confirmed it. Just in case.
Just in case you've done something else.
No, actually, sir, it's about you're drunk. But they confirmed it was that. And they said, well, what we need to do is we need to place you under arrest. So they did that. They cautioned me. And then they allowed me to get, more decently dressed, so I was presentable. They took my personal computer, my work computer, so I had a work laptop. They took that. They saw another laptop, and I said, well, that's my housemate's. And they left that. They said they weren't interested in that. And then took me to the station. And it was in a plain car, so unmarked car, all very calm. When we got to the station, that started getting a bit more scary because you had to go through the custody suite. And, that's when it really started hitting home. But I was still at the time, I think I was kind of in shock.
Yes.
Because I was being very calm, very helpful. I can even remember when they asked me, they said, we just need to interview you, and we can do it straight away, or if you'd like legal representation, then that's your right. And I said to them, I have always been advised never to do this kind of interview without a solicitor.
Yeah.
And I said, I actually apologized. And I said, so I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to ask to have a duty solicitor. And I remember the custody sergeant looking at me like I'm some kind of idiot. Why is he apologising? And they said, yeah, no problem, but we're going to have to put you in a cell.
Yeah.
And I really got the vibe from these two detectives of, we don't really want to do this. We just want to interview you. But, I had to be put in a cell, take your shoes off, and take your belt off, and they did the DNA and the fingerprints and the photo and all that. And I can remember just certain details, I can't remember anything dramatic like slamming doors or anything like that, but I can remember the sensation of being locked in a room that I cannot open.
Yeah.
I can remember that there were ants in there. I remember that because I had quite a good chat with them.
Did they offer legal counsel?
And all the time I was remaining on the surface very calm. And I must say the police were doing a very good job there because they know that if you're calm, it will make the process simpler.
Absolutely.
Anyway, eventually, duty solicitor turned up. I had a quick chat with them. He warned me in advance that they had a copy of the head teacher's dossier, where we're talking 18 months worth of him trying to nail me. And the solicitor said, when they ask you about that, say no comment, because that dossier is not related to the actual event.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I thought, good advice, thank you. And I looked at him and I said, so what have they actually got? And the solicitor, he said, look, they have a statement taken from the child on the day of the alleged incident. And he said, already these statements don't match up because originally the child said you touched him like inappropriately. I said, but then the second statement they got, he says he touched me on the midriff. And I looked at the solicitor and he says, yeah, that's not a word a 12-year-old boy uses.
No. We'll take a break there. Thanks for listening to episode 1. Be sure to tune in to episode number 2.